everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful week. I cannot believe it's already Wednesday. It's been insane here. As you know, we just got back into town not too long ago. So it's just been catch up. So in a way, it feels like Monday. In a way, it feels like it should be Friday. But it's none of those. It's Wednesday. So today we've got two things planned for you. We're going to be taking a look at some of my EPs in the collection and talking about the difference between an EP and a regular 45 and looking at some of these and, why would you want to collect them? Some of the things I look for. You're not going to want to miss that. And then also we're going to be taking a look at a product. We're going to do an unboxing review. This is a cassette player recorder mechanism thingy-majig that does something I have not seen to date. So we're going to unbox it, test it out, and demo it. You're not going to want to miss this. I always relish an opportunity to bring out my beautiful RCA Victor vintage changers. We've got a 45J and a J2, both of them from right around 1949, 1950. This guy right here, fully operational, quirky, but fully operational. This one is still mid-restoration. You can see some masking tape holding that arm back there. I've changed out the cartridge. We're still having some issues with the internal alignment of things, but beautiful pieces nonetheless. So a conversation about 45s and EPs affords me the opportunity to pull these out of storage and, even as just set dressing, it's a good thing. So what's the difference between a 45, of which that is, and an EP, which this is? Well, there is a difference, and, if you're new to vinyl, this may be the first time you're hearing about this. So let's talk for a minute. So way back in the day, there was a format war between RCA Victor's 45 and Columbia's LP to replace the aging 78 RPM record format. Little did they know it'd still be around for another 10 years or so. But anyway, eventually they both ended up making both formats. We've talked about this before, but the 45, which was RCA's baby, is a familiar record to many of us. It is a 7-inch record. In the US, it often has the large hole. In the UK, oftentimes it has a small hole. So originally designed for changers like this, the record would obviously just, go right on top there and drop right down onto the platter. Because the large hole variant was primarily a US-based format, the UK variants didn't work with this type of a changer, so you don't usually see these in England, unfortunately, although, there's private collectors that, get what they want, Techmoan being one of them. He doesn't care if it's supposed to be there or not. But yeah, so this is a standard 45. You've got one song on one side and another song on the other side, the A side, the B side, and they were primarily used to release singles. And this format existed from the late 1940s, when these were in fashion, and long after they went out of fashion, all the way through the early 1990s. And it is what it is, a 45. They're generally regarded as being high quality sound from the standpoint of they spin faster than a 33 RPM 12-inch LP. And with analog media, the faster, the more, the better. So there's more media moving underneath that stylus, therefore there's more resolution to the audio. There are caveats to that. These have a tendency to be made out of styrene, which is basically a cheaper plastic, more brittle, has issues, wears out a lot faster, et cetera, et cetera. But that is, let me rearrange this a little bit. That is, the essence of a 40. Oh yeah, you'll notice that they have a raised hub. Actually, it's hard to notice, but this hub area is raised because they were designed to be stacked. And with the hub raised, when they're stacked vertically, the only part touching is that paper label. So in theory, the playing surface, which is thinner than the hub, doesn't touch the next record. In actuality, when they warp, and they do warp quite easily, those surfaces end up still touching each other. But what RCA decided to do a few years after the introduction of the 45 was to kind of up the ante on the format a little bit and release something called a 45 EP. Now, this is an example of an EP, and it's the same dimensions, 7 inches, large hole in the US, small hole in the UK, 45 RPM, completely compatible, backwards compatible. That's one of the cool things about EPs is they're completely forward and backwards compatible. And, you don't need any special equipment, et cetera, et cetera. The only difference is you'll see there's 2 songs on there instead of just the one with a regular 45. In essence, what they did was they squished the width of those grooves so that they could cram 2 songs, and sometimes more, onto a record. I'm going to put it right there side by side. And as you can see, they are virtually identical, except for the fact that the EP has 4 tracks, 2 on each side, and the regular 45 has 1 on each side, or 2 total tracks. So that's the essence of it. It's just, more songs, more audio crammed onto the record, more total playing time so that you can get more audio onto that disc. And it's totally fine. It's totally, like I said, forwards and backwards compatible. I would say that the resolution on these would be a bit less because there's less real estate. And when we talk about analog, it's all about real estate. The more, the faster, et cetera, et cetera. Because we don't have that much real estate, even though we're still spending 45 RPM, it's crammed into a tighter space. You get more echoing. It's just not quite as high quality. For most people, it's not going to be a noticeable issue whatsoever. So I wanted to show you some of my 45s and some of my non-45s, or some of my EP 45s. This is a pretty early EP. This is on London Records. This is Sambas. Edmundo Ross and his orchestra, the Scottish Samba. Usually don't think of Scottish sambas, but it's a thing. So on the back, you've got some advertising for other titles. And it's interesting, maybe if you're new to this, you're probably very familiar with the term EP. And you're like, yeah, my favorite rap artist just released his latest EP. What does it have to do with that? Well, what it has to do with it is the fact that an EP has more songs than a single, but less than an album. So the concept has gone beyond records, so that even though artists aren't releasing necessarily an EP on a vinyl record, they can still release an EP worth of music, which would be, less than a full album. It'd be 4 to 5, 6 songs. A lot of new artists start with an EP before they do a full album release. So EPs still exist to this day. You can go on Apple Music, Spotify, and listen to EPs today. This is a regular 45. This is a 1980s 45. Let's go ahead and take a gander at this. It's also just a good excuse to show some records that, apparently need to be cleaned. And we've talked about this before, but the mastering engineer controls how wide those grooves are. You can see this one could have been an EP. They could have fit another song in there almost as long as this one, which is 2 minutes and 45 seconds long. Or the engineer could have spread those out a little bit. And when that happens, it's higher quality. So some audiophile 12-inch 45s exist. We've reviewed some of those before too. So that's kind of like the ultimate audiophile record format, a 12-inch 45 with very few songs on each side, like 2 or 3, so that the grooves are, miles apart from each other. It's a complete opposite of an EP. But there is another 45. Let's take a look at this right here. Let's find out if this is an EP as well. This is an international release too. This is pretty cool. I'll pick these things up all the time, and I just don't have an opportunity, to show them, except when we're, talking about something like this. All right, so quiz time. Is that an EP or is that a regular 45? Right, it's clearly an EP because it's got 2 songs per side. Now, there was a governing body, I don't recall the name of it, in the UK, and they actually set ground rules for what could be considered an EP or what could be considered an album. They said that EPs had to be 25 minutes or less in total running time, and they could only have, how many songs was it? I want to say 8 as a maximum. Now, fitting 8 songs, unless they were very short, on a 45 record would be challenging, but it's kind of interesting nonetheless. Here is a very cool 45 Duke Ellington, and you can see this cover is in dire need of restoration work, but still very, very cool. And this is just a 45. Typically, the EPs will, there'll be some mention in either the catalog number or somewhere on there. We'll see if we can find one of those. One more regular 45 here. We've got another 80s 45. I got to have a mess here to clean up, but that's okay. And yeah, that's a classic. Geffen Records, very, very sharp. This has a very thick hub, so that would be good for like a jukebox player. By this time, nobody was thinking about playing these on a old 45 changer, but they made 45 changer adapters for typical, most people had like a BSR changer, or if you were, rich, you'd have a dual changer, something like that. So there was other options out there. All right, let's look at some of my EPs. So this one is really cool. This is one of the Glenn Miller titles. Sometimes, like in this case, record labels would issue EPs of their existing catalog just as a method of conveyance of reissues, just to get, you can see the catalog there, EPA 5049, designating this as an EP. This was a great way to reissue, some songs. And to collectors, it's cool to find any 7-inch record, a 45 or an EP that still has the cover. I'm showing you some of mine that do, but believe me, like you do, I've got, boxes full of, naked 45s. It's not good. So to find any with a sleeve is pretty cool. And these are kind of like mini albums. They're kind of like mini albums. And yes, we have talked about the Compact 33 before, separate format. But these are great. Wow, apparently I've got a duplicate of this. Is this? Yeah. Okay, I'm just realizing this now. I've got a duplicate. And this one's got a 45 adapter in it. I'm not going to go into extreme detail, but a few of my other, you can tell I'm a Glenn. Do I have two of this too? I do. Okay, wait. Nope. Volume 2, Volume 3. Okay. Whew. I don't want to be too repetitive. Oh, another 45 slipped in here. I'm trying to, this is a paper thin record. I am trying to get a hold of Curly's grandson, who's very prominent on social media, to do something with us so we can do a show about that. If you're out there, Brad, hit me up in the comments or the direct messaging. I would love to talk to you. Yeah, these are great. And now there's another variant that came along called a double EP. And as you guessed it, it just means 2 records. And you get these little gatefolds and stuff. That is so cool. These are Decca releases. I love a Decca Black Label release. That is awesome. In fact, I just bought a 1957 Decca single, not of this artist. That'll be coming in a future show. Got a killer deal for it online. And so this is still part 1, even though it's a double album set or a double EP set. It's still only part 1. I've got part 3 as well. And you may be saying to yourself, where's part 2? I have that, but I have that on 12-inch. So it's kind of bizarre how I have that. But I came across all 3 parts, and I figured I'd like to have it. So I love Benny Goodman, too. It's great music. So anyway, there's just a quick cursory look at EPs versus regular 45s. Keep an eye out for this stuff. You will come across this. The EPs are out there. They're slightly more hard to find than a regular 45. But, it's a cool thing. It's a really cool thing. And, artists, up-and-coming artists often go for that format even to this day because it's cheaper to produce. And for the buying public, these are cheaper to purchase. So they're very popular in the 50s for teens. RCA made a killing out of making 45 EPs of Elvis music. And the kids that couldn't afford the album necessarily could afford the EP. And that's something else to consider. It's a market-driven thing here. This is not just a commodity that doesn't ride on the commercial success of the format. So it's an interesting history and one that I thought that I would share some of my examples here today. I can't believe we've gone as long as we have because we're not done yet. We've got a cool piece of tech to look at next. So recently, the company that makes and sells this device, Digilife, contacted me and they're like, would you like to take a look at this device? And I was like, okay, it looks vaguely familiar to me. We'll get to more of that in a minute. Second of all, cassette to audio converter. Okay, it's a converter device for cassettes. It's a little bit more unique. Yeah, I suppose we could take a look at it. I'm always curious about what's new and upcoming. And unlike other YouTube people out there who shall remain nameless. Actually, there's multiple people. Actually, I think pretty much everybody but me. I'm not going to take a dump on this just because it's modern. I'm going to give it a fair shot. So let's do that. Let's take a look at it. I'm interested, I'm interested to see what's out there, even if it's not something that, is going to beat a Sony Walkman. I'm still interested. I don't know why everybody gets so grouchy about this stuff. And that's kind of been one of the, main premises of this show from day one, is just to be positive, to enjoy what we do have. We show faithfulness in the small things. Hopefully we'll be blessed with, greater things down the road. That's, the way I try to look at life in general. Somebody may not be able to afford a vintage Sony Walkman. They're pretty pricey. Or maybe, they really do want something just for the fact that they can convert their tapes. More on that in a minute. And that's fine too. So I'm not going to just automatically blanket statement say, this is bad right out of the gate, because maybe it's really good. So now when I saw this, I was like, man, that looks familiar, because it wasn't too long ago we reviewed this from ClearClick, and it also is a converter. At least it says it is. So what on earth is the difference on these two? You will see a similar design being used by a lot of companies today, which I think is actually cooler looking and more interesting than the Jensen that has been in use for 35 years with no change whatsoever. But yeah, let's take a look at these. The big telltale on this, that they are probably very similar, if not the same unit at its core, are the big play buttons and the transport controls, the direction. They are bi-directional. They actually have auto reverse mechanisms in them. And I think that's a cool thing. Let's look on the side right here. We've got DC in on both. Dimensionally, they are a little different, actually. Look at that. The one on the left is a little bit larger. We've got the same release latch. We've got a volume control, headphone jack. One of them is green, one of them is black. But you will see right there, I'm going to zoom in to make it painfully obvious, the major difference here. So the ClearClick unit on the right has a USB jack, whereas this unit actually has a full-blown USB connection for a thumb drive. So you're able to actually put a thumb drive into this unit. And what does that mean, my friends? That means with this device, we should be able to back up our analog cassette tapes to digital MP3s, assumedly MP3s, with no software and no computer. Because with this, you're going to need to connect it to your computer with that cable, and you're going to need to open up Audacity, and that's a bit much for some people. That's not something that, maybe you and I feel comfortable doing that, but not everybody does. Say here, just get some free software called Audacity and go to town. You'll figure it out. It's not fun to use, but you'll figure it out, which is kind of what everybody says about that. Whereas this, the out of the box, experience might be a little bit more gentler on somebody who's not as technically savvy. So we'll try that out in a minute. One thing I do want to point out is that the design is different on the picture that's on the box versus the actual design that we have here. Also, I can tell right off the bat there is some film, and you don't have to listen to any, voiceover running gag on this. We're just going to rip it off. I love Tech Mode. I really do, and he's given me some great advice. I'm not ragging on him at all, but it's a different show, okay? It's a different show. They also give you this power cord. So it's a barrel connector on one side and a USB again on the other. But this is for power. So you'd plug this into a brick and then this into the device. And then you wouldn't have to rely on batteries. So these are kind of unique. The way they open, you take your thumb on this kind of grippy piece right here and you lift up or down. And the door swings up from the side, which is kind of interesting. And the battery compartment is right down here. Battery compartment is right there, runs on 2 AA batteries. This is a pretty lightweight plastic. It doesn't feel like super high quality plastic, and it's painted this super shiny thing, but I don't think they're fooling anybody about this being metal or not. Okay, and the motor right there, they're trying to make it as thin as possible, so they didn't want to put anything over the top of the motor. Sometimes these have like a sticker that goes over the motor. Let me see if the other one does. No, the other one doesn't either. So the ClearClick one on the right it's very similar. Again, not identical. This one is taller. I mean, it is deeper, longer, I guess is the dimension I'm looking for. Let's take a look at the heads. That's going to be the first one that I'm curious to look at. So let's look at the ClearClick under the hood here. As you can see, it is a 4-track head. So that is to accommodate the auto reverse. So you get stereo one way and stereo the other way. The play button actuates the transport and pushes the head down. So that helps simplify things. You've got 2 pinch rollers and 2 cap stands. And I can attest to that this design it's not bad. I've used it on cross-country road trips. Just got back from another one recently. And I'm going to make sure this one has the same head. I'm sure it does. Yeah, it does. It's a 4-track head. And it was a good compact unit. And I've never been one for belt clips. Oh, well, never mind. The back is okay. So that was just the other side. It shows you how detail-oriented I am. Interesting. Okay, so we'll get more to that in a minute. But there's no clip. Like this one on the back just has this. There's no clip, which I think is great because I hate belt clips. It never felt right putting this on a belt. I don't know why. I never thought that was good. So giving up the idea of a belt and just having it be something you hold in your hand and put in your pocket, that's the way to go. Okay, enough of the clear click. What do we have here? Are these buttons? What? Oh, you know what? Those are transport controls for the USB. It makes sense. You'd have to have something to actually, control what is on there. So I wonder if we can play back audio as well. That is interesting. Standalone auto partition. So that must mean that when you come to the end of a song, it will automatically, start a new file when the next one starts. That is cool. We're losing light, which is amazing because it was so bright and beautiful here in Colorado today. And now the sun is setting and my light is going. I really want to wrap this up before I lose the light completely and have to resort to the harsh ring light. But no, this is really cool. So we're going to use this today. Obviously, this isn't for making copies of copyrighted music. This is for making copies of content that you own, home recorded tapes, etc., etc. Now, if you're just doing stuff for home use, perhaps things are a little bit looser in that regard. I love how the label is oriented with this in this direction. I think that's cool. Now this, you just pop it right onto the cap stands directly. There's not much else to kind of hold it in place. It sits in there a little bit loose, but it's in there good. So interesting. This is like reload the tape, but not necessarily the front of the unit. You've got everything up here. You still need the mechanical transport controls up here. Let's take a closer look. We have the direction that will switch it front to back. You can have auto repeat or loop, whatever you want there. Fast forward, rewind, stop, and play. So yeah, this is a pretty cool, compact, auto reverse tape mechanism. And because it uses a 4-track head, they don't have to use an actuator or a solenoid to quickly rotate that head around. It just stays put. So the head alignment isn't a concern because it just stays put. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put some batteries into this, and we are going to make a recording of the audio on this tape, and then we're going to compare it to a higher quality unit, look at the file, all that good stuff. Okay, it just got too dark, so I had to switch to the ring light. My apologies there. We're going to give it an initial listen. Then we're going to record some audio. But first, let's just listen to it. So I was reading the instruction manual. There's no mention on the resolution. So yeah, put this into our MP3, our Bluetooth speaker that has a line input. And let's go ahead and play this. Okay, it's not fair to test stuff right out of the box like this because oftentimes you'll have really bad wow and flutter on something out of the box. And then, after, so it'll have like a bad review, and then, I'll use it for a few days and it'll really sound fine after that. So in an ideal world, we wouldn't be doing that, but. Okay, so the wow and flutter's off the charts. You know what? I think we should try something with music actually. So let me swap this tape out for something with music. One of my favorite things about these machines is you can play the tape with the lid open, which is kind of fun. As a kid, I would eat this stuff up. This is exactly what I would want in my life. Electronics where I could see how it works, see how everything is functioning. So this is like a Madison 90s cassette release of some big band music. So oftentimes, I wouldn't say they were bootleg, but these were like, let's just say we shouldn't have any issues with any copyright with the YouTube bot. So we should be able to use this audio just fine. Audio quality is adequate for what we're doing here. So yeah, let's take a look at how to record. So we've got our thumb drive plugged in there. You will notice we've got a green LED right there. And there are two record modes. There's an automatic record mode and a manual record mode. And we're going to start with manual. So once you've got that green light, you just tap on the record button, which is sharing space with the pause button, and you'll see the flash, and it is recording. Again, I'll be really curious to see what the resolution on these files are. Now, if you want to record on the automatic mode where it detects silence, and it's that auto partition mode where it creates automatic files, all you do is press the forward button down here at the bottom. Okay, so we're recording the tape right now. I've got the lights off so you can see the lights on the device a little bit better. The blue LED is flashing, telling us that it is recording in the automatic mode. And the little green flashing is from my thumb drive. That's not from the device, so don't worry about that. It's just saying that something is being written to that disk. In addition to thumb drives, you could also connect this to a USB hard drive. I've done that before for different conversions. I haven't done it with this device, but I assume that would work. But let's go ahead and listen to our converted file and see what we think. Okay, so now it is playing back that MP3 from the thumb drive. Transport controls are active now for that. There's no tape in there any longer. On this speaker, it just sounds about the same, but I really want to hear it directly. So let's listen to that direct feed. Okay, so there was some compression there. Not a huge surprise. But let's go ahead and see what this same tape sounds like on my beautiful Yamaha KX390 with the glass ferrite heads. This is a thing of beauty. So we're just listening ambiently in mono, just the mic in the room on my Fluence speakers. So here we go. Just as a comparison, what this tape should sound like. So again, not the highest quality recording to begin with, but not bad. Not bad. I think it's a fair test tape. So yeah, I mean, it works. The device works. It's got the expected issues, a little bit of wow and flutter, which I think will normalize over time. It's never going to be, Panasonic, Sony grade, performance, but it gets the job done. You can take audio off your analog tapes and digitize them for spoken word, for lectures, recordings of grandma and grandpa that have passed, perhaps. That might be, a very usable feature and a tool that could help people back up stuff. Also, if you've got, like in our family, we've got a lot of music that was recorded by musicians in the family that just literally recorded their stuff on like little cheap shoebox players. And in order to preserve something like that, that may not be super high res or high quality, but is, more, emotional. It's, what I mean? It's more nostalgic than anything. So let me know down in the comments below what you think and any ideas that you can come up with for this little device. I'll go ahead and put a link in the description below. It's a cool and fun little gadget. Okay, guys, and that is going to do it for today. I hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. If you didn't, you can go ahead and give me a thumbs down. That's okay too. If you want to see more content than the 2 shows a week that we do, consider joining the Vinyl Nation. It's a paid membership program where you get an extra show a week, among other benefits. Info down below, so check those links out. There's all kinds of information in our description. We got all kinds of goodies in there for you, so never miss that. Don't forget to check that out after every show. But that, my friends, is going to do it for... Oh yeah, one more thing. Have you gone over to our TikTok yet? And I know some people are trepidatious about TikTok, and I get it. I was myself until fairly recently. And I've really enjoyed that space to kind of do some new kind of creative things with record players and records and other technology, as well as reach people that aren't in the YouTube world and kind of pull them into the show. If you have joined us here on YouTube because of our TikTok, let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to, get a little market analysis and see how that's coming along. If you guys enjoy that, if you haven't checked it out yet, just go check it over there. It's fun. We just got cool stuff for you to check out. You're not going to want to miss that. But my friends, that's it for today. So happy record hunting, and we will see you later.